Record, record. That's it. No, pull focus. Right on that forehead. It's big enough. Hello! Recently I posted a retro bike shootout, which I'm not gonna lie, was predominantly to explain that I'd got myself a new set of wheels for 2019. I was a proud parent, what can I say? But I did get a few comments about bikes that I didn't include in that set, or bikes that I haven't tested. So it's only right that I do a follow-up and we compare some larger capacity modern retro bikes. If you're looking at a group of 4 bikes to compare, these do it really well. I think people mentioned the Speed Twin because it was a recent test of mine and I really did like that bike, so some people were surprised that I didn't buy it. The BMW got a mention because, well, you can't mention retro bikes without mentioning the BMW because it is really good. Now, although I rode the R9T, I'm actually going to be comparing the R9T Pure to the rest of this field. The R9T is the better bike, and in suspension and brakes, it would beat the rest of this lineup, but it's also a lot more expensive. So that's why for specs, I'm going to be comparing the Pure instead. And the Kawasaki and the Yamaha I test rode a little while back now, actually. In fact, on that point, the Yamaha, I dread to even look. I don't even know if I can use the footage of that one. If anyone's interested, I used to record these on my mobile phone. Galaxy S6. And do you know what, for a camera phone, yeah, it's not great. As always, let's just start with the stats, find out which one's best in which particular field before describing their character. For the engine, largest capacity is the Triumph, then the BMW, then the Kawasaki, and then the Yamaha. Obviously, there's slightly different configurations. We have a parallel twin with the Triumph, a boxer twin with the BMW, an inline 4-cylinder with the Kawasaki, and a triple cylinder with the Yamaha. Horsepower, Yamaha is actually the most powerful, despite being the lowest capacity. Beamer and the Kawasaki are the same, and the Triumph is the least powerful. However, the Triumph makes its peak power first, then the Beamer, then the Kawasaki, and then the Yamaha. Winner for torque, BMW. Very close is the Triumph just behind, then the Kawasaki, and then the Yamaha. Again, Triumph makes it first, then the BMW, then the Kawasaki, and then the Yamaha. Said that weird, didn't I? Yamaha. Yum yum. Yummy. Yams. Yams. So in terms of spec, the Yamaha pips it for horsepower and the BMW wins for torque. But I will touch upon the engine character a little bit later in the review. Suspension is a tricky one, but I'm going to give the edge to the Kawasaki. The Kawasaki wins because the front suspension is fully adjustable. Then technically the Yamaha has some adjustability as well. You've got preload and rebound. And then really, there's not a lot in it, but then the Triumph will be my next pick, and then the BMW. If we're going for the rear suspension, the BMW actually does win, then the Kawasaki comes in second, both adjustable for preload and rebound. And then it might seem unfair, but I'm actually going to put the Yamaha in next. It's not bad by any standards, but to the feel of it, it's just not quite as strong as the other two. And then the least impressive suspension is obviously the Triumph. You've got your twin shocks, adjustable only for preload. Again, not too bad, but not in the same league. Brakes, Kawasaki, I'm going to say wins. 300mm discs, 4-piston, radial mounted, monoblock. All the buzzwords for great feel, great brakes. Again, if we were allowing it, the R9T actually would have the better brakes, but we're going with the Pure. I'm going to put the BMW and the Triumph practically the same for brakes, really. Again, it probably seems mean to do this, but I am going to put the Yamaha in next. Even they're not really that excited by their own brakes. They don't really list a lot of details on their own website. Proportions. I'm not just going to list a winner because it sort of depends on your taste and what you're looking for. Shortest bike, BMW. Very closely followed by the Triumph, then the Yamaha by quite a margin, which is quite close to the Kawasaki. I personally prefer them being lower because I feel more connected to the ground and I can flat foot easier, but it completely depends on you. Wheelbase, Triumph is the shortest, then the Yamaha, then the Kawasaki, and then the BMW. The steepest angle of rake comes from the Triumph, then the Yamaha, then the Kawasaki, and then the BMW. Trail is similar, shortest, snappiest, sportiest steering, Triumph. Then the Yamaha, and then the Kawasaki. The BMW is the longest and it does feel it. Having a longer bike translates to it feeling a little bit more stable, usually a little slower to react, but also a little bit smoother at the bars. Weight. Hold on. How much do they weigh? Yamaha lightest, Kawasaki next, then the Triumph, we assume, and then the BMW. Triumph's really self-conscious about their weight. That's why they only ever list it dry. Boring stuff, I guess. Do you want to talk about boring stuff? Biggest tank, BMW and the Kawasaki. And then the Triumph and the Yamaha are pretty much the same. Listed miles per gallon, the Triumph wins. Then the two Japs, Yamaha, Kawasaki. And then the Beamer. Not a lot in it. Equipment-wise, we have rider modes on some of them and not on others. I say others, one. Some of the best tech I would say is on the Triumph. It has road, rain and sport for rider modes. They work really well. They are intuitive. They do give some feedback. The only drawback I would say is the fact that it's ride-by-wire means there is a slight delay on that throttle. The Yamaha's throttle could be described as a little bit abrupt. Again, 3 rider modes. Kawasaki has 2 rider modes. BMW, jack lickety split. Cool. Would I miss the rider modes or the technology? Potentially not. The fact that the Beamer doesn't have any only lends itself to it being a little bit more accurate on the throttle actually. And I find my rider modes there and there. That's my rider mode. Listen to music, get in the zone, really carve out a path. Sometimes it happens.
It's a really stable bike in a corner. They have set that thing up nicely. There's no real shake to it, no drama to it. It feels nicely connected to the ground. I like it. I would own it. It would take some owning to really get the most out of it or to fully appreciate it. But from face value, it's a good set of wheels.
Let me draw your attention to the BMW shaft. It's how it puts its power down. It's important. Now if you're wondering where I stand on the shaft, I don't stand on it, but I like it. I like it on my bikes, hence why I got the Moto Guzzi. I like the fact that it requires less maintenance. And I like the visceral feedback you get from it when you're riding. It feels connected. But there is no denying it is heavier, it is slightly less efficient. And as I say, if you do need to do anything on it at any stage, it becomes more expensive. But up until that stage, you don't need to lubricate it, you don't need to keep it taut, you don't need to change your sprocket, you don't need to change the chain. And it's cleaner, actually, as well. And I don't like to get these dirty, so, you know. And then for a lot of us, the deciding factor, price. Yamaha is the cheapest, followed by the Kawasaki, then the BMW, and finally the Triumph. But not by a huge margin. So in terms of who wins, we've got our specs out of the way. If you're looking for bragging rights, there you are. The biggest difference for them comes from the engine. So the engine character of the Triumph, I would probably describe as low and thumping. It's super easy to overtake, it's super easy to punch out of a corner, but there is a lot less to chase, so you theoretically need to change the gears more frequently than you would on something like the Yamaha. Being a twin, it is similar in a way to the BMW, but where the Triumph makes a lot of its power really early on, the BMW for a twin actually has more to hang on to. It's still got the most torque, but it is found spread across the rev range, and it goes all the way up to 7.5. It's a strong, consistent pull. And then I'm going to compare the Kawasaki to the Yamaha a little bit. The Kawasaki is a 4-cylinder. Generally their nature is smoother. Generally they're quite linear as well. But again, it's a long, smooth, deliberate pull all the way up to about 8,500. And then obviously the highest revving of all of them, it is the lowest capacity, but it speaks volumes to that triple cylinder setup that it has the most power. It's got enough puff in any gear all the way up to 10,000 revs. And also, bear in mind, it is the lightest of these bikes. So the power to weight ratio is on point. Let me put it to you like this. A lot of people wonder which bike I would choose, and I tend to refrain from making a decision because I don't want my bias to affect you. Of course I've got a favourite, of course I have. If I was picking out of this lineup, genuinely I'm drawn to the Triumph. There's something about that low thumping power and that snappy handling that I just connected to. I could see myself riding that bike well. And out of these 4, that's the bike I'd be the most comfortable on, so that is the bike that I would be the fastest with. I know I would. So really, if you're looking for the top dog, the fastest bike in this lineup, in real world conditions, it's the one you feel most comfortable on. And as you're all different, you will all have a different take on that, I'm sure.
And let's see if it gets the sheep verdict. One lonely sheep in a field by itself. Nope, that grass is far more interesting. I think that sheep was deaf. It probably won't surprise you that I have nothing but good things to say about this bike. But then I'm not the only one, so you can call it bias, whatever you want, but when that many people are telling you that it's a good bike, there's probably something in it.
If my decision offends any of you, I do apologise. It is of course your right to be offended, as it is my right not to care. But as way of recompense, if I do see any of you out riding, come up to me, let me know. I'll buy you a coffee to apologise. Nothing fancy though. If you start sticking coconut milk in that thing, you're paying for it yourself. Bye.